Welcome. In this video, we are going to practice finding devices with the MAC and ARP tables. Alright, so this video is just one video in a much larger series called GNS3 Labs for the CCNA exam. In a previous video, I went through the differences between the ARP and MAC tables. We created topology and went through some of the basics of both the MAC and ARP tables. And in this video, we're going to take it one step further. We're going to create a daisy chain topology, and then we're going to start looking for specific IP addresses and MAC addresses. And then we're going to use a process in order to find where they are. Commands that we're going to use in this lesson include the show MAC address table, which shows you the MAC address table on a specific device, the show MAC address table interface for a specific interface, and that shows you the MAC addresses that were learned coming across that specific interface. We're going to use the show CDP neighbors command, which allows you to see directly connected Cisco devices. We're going to use the show interfaces trunk command, which allows you to see what interfaces are configured as trunks and what VLANs are carried across that interface. Show VLAN brief, which shows you what VLANs are created on a device and what interfaces have what VLANs assigned to them. And then show ARP, which shows you the ARP table. All right, so here we are now on GNS3, and the first thing that I'm going to do is build a topology. It's going to be very similar to the topology that we created in the previous video, except we're basically going to make 3 of those topologies and then connect them together. So it's going to be a daisy chained switch environment, which is actually very common in the real world. All right, now that I've got the topology built, the next thing I'm going to do is power everything on and then organize my consoles. All right, so I'm adding a short clip in after the fact because I realized that there was one thing that I neglected to do, and that was click on this ABC button here, which will show or hide the interface labels. And just in case you're following along at home and doing this with me, I'm going to show the interface labels so that you can know that you have the correct interfaces connected to the correct PCs, and the correct interfaces are trunks and everything like that. All right, so now that we have everything looking pretty, if you want to stop and take a screenshot, and then that way you will have a reference as to what ports are connected to what. All right, so now I have my consoles organized and it looks like everything's booted up. The next step is going to be configuring everything. So on the right-hand side of my screen here, I do have my notepad open and I do have the configuration here that I'm going to be applying to the devices. I'm going to try and get all of this configuration to fit in the description of the video, but that may or may not work. And if not, and if it's not down there, just stop and pause the video appropriately in order to get the configuration that I have. And so the first piece of configuration is going to be assigning the IP addresses and the default gateway to each of the PCs. So this portion is going to be the IP address, and then the portion right after this is going to be the default gateway. And for all of the PCs that are hanging off of switch 1, the default gateway here is going to be the IP address of VLAN 10, and the interface VLAN 10 exists on switch 1. And then on each of the switches, I'm going to define the host name. I'm going to create VLAN 10, and then these are all of the access ports, which are going to be put in VLAN 10. And then I'm going to create the trunk port that connects to the other switches, and I'm going to allow VLAN 10 to go across that trunk. All right, now I'm going to paste all this config in and get it all going. Oh, and then one small mistake in my configuration, I forgot to change the name of the PCs here in my notepad. So I'm just going to do that real quick before I paste this in. All right, so now as the next step, I'm going to do some ping tests and make sure that all of the devices can ping each other. Okay, now we can see that switch 1 can ping all of the IP addresses in the topology, and I'm just going to test one of the PCs as well. Interesting. So on the very last PC, we have an issue, so we're going to troubleshoot that. All right, so that's interesting. You can see after just going around and pinging everything a little bit more, I didn't really change any configuration, that PC1 is now able to ping PC12. So I'm just going to assume that that's an anomaly. All right, so now let's get to the exercise. So let's say that we are on switch 1 here, and we are looking for the IP address of PC12, which is over here. And for the sake of this exercise, we're just going to kind of pretend that we don't know exactly how everything's connected together. But we're on switch 1, and we are trying to find the exact port where PC12 is connected at 10.0.0.12. So the first step is going to be, we're going to ping it. All right, so we know we have connectivity to it. Then we're going to do show ARP. We're going to use the ARP table. We find this IP address. And then with that, we know that this is the MAC address that we're going to be looking for. And then from switch 1, we will do show MAC address table. And we can see that we have that MAC. And we can say that we learned it through this interface. And if you wanted to, you could do and in this case it happens to be the same because all the MACs that we're showing were learned through that interface currently. But this shows you all of the MACs that we learned from interface gigabit 10. And then as a next step, we can do show CDP neighbors to see what other Cisco devices we are connected to. And we can see that this same interface, gigabit 10, is connected to switch 2. And then we can also check to see if we are properly trunked there. Show interface is trunk. Shows that we do have one interface that is trunking, which is our gigabit 10 interface, and that VLAN 10 is being trunked. And then show VLAN brief is going to let us know that VLAN 10 is the VLAN that all of our access ports are in. So if we want our access ports to be able to communicate with the other hosts, we know that VLAN 10 is the VLAN that we need to have trunked across all the trunks and extended to these other devices. So the next step, since we know that we're connected to switch 2, would be to go to the console of switch 2. And as the first step, we're going to look at the MAC address table. And we find that 680B address is on here, and it was learned through port 11. So if we wanted to, we could look at all the MACs that were learned just from that interface, which again is only going to be one, but that's how you would do that. Show VLAN brief, again, is going to show you that VLAN 10 exists on this, and all of its access ports are in VLAN 10. So show interfaces VLAN trunk is going to show that on the interface that we're interested in, that trunking is on, and it is extending VLAN 10. And then show CDP neighbors. It shows us that we have switch 3 that is on the other side of this interface. And at this point, we can go to switch 3. Show MAC address table. All right, so it's empty, which means that all of the entries have aged out of it. And since we're looking for 10.0.0.12, all we have to do is now if we look at the MAC address table, it has repopulated. And this is going to show us that the IP address that we're looking for that has the same MAC, the one that ends in 680B, which is the one that we've been looking for all along, is off port gigabit 03. All right, so again, these were the commands that we used in this lesson: the show MAC address table, the show MAC address table for a specific interface, the show CDP neighbors, which allows us to see directly connected Cisco devices, This command in particular is very helpful when you're deploying stuff or you're just trying to figure out what is this physically connected to. The show interface is trunk. Make sure that your trunking is extending the VLANs that you want it to, and it tells you what ports have trunking enabled on them. Show VLAN brief allows you to see what VLANs exist on the switch and what interfaces have what VLANs assigned to them. And then, of course, show ARP shows you the ARP table. As always, you should check out the rest of the videos in the GNS3 Labs for CCNA series. If you found this helpful, please consider liking and subscribing, and I'll see you in the next video.